think we're all set. So let's go ahead and get started. Part of the bumpiness is that Liz is out. So Iman and I are, Iman is kind of taking over Liz's duties for the first time. And so bear with us as we try this out, but it'll all be good. So Iman, if you want to go ahead and share slides, we'll get started.
Doing that for y'all right now. Give me 1 second.
No worries. Pastor Weisner, you'll have to keep us updated about the score.
Oh, where you at?
How's everybody's week going?
There we go.
Good. It's beautiful out.
Yes.
It is, and my team won the first game of the Stanley Cup playoff, so I'm a happy person.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
I didn't get a chance to see. I was gone today most of the time.
Oh, it's a great game. You'll love watching it.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I do.
All right. Okay, so we will officially start the meeting now. So good evening, everyone. It is June 3rd, 2026, and this is a public meeting of the full committee of the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing. And this will be the first meeting since our elections and kind of in our sort of new PCCEP year. So we have two new full committee co-chairs, Pastor Weisner and Kip. So welcome to them, and they will be presiding over this meeting with support from staff. So I will look to them to lead us through these next intro parts, but we can get started first with introductions. So Pastor Weisner, why don't you go ahead and start? And next slide, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pastor Robin Weisner, co-chair, full committee, also community engaged member, and co-chair with my great friend Kip. I do have a question before introduction start. I do see we have Coin News with us, and remarks that usually want to be not on record generally stay off record when speaking. I believe that would be the right protocol.
Well, this is a public meeting, so everything is on the record.
Okay.
Yes. All right, Kip, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, hi. I am Kip Silverman, he, him pronouns, co-chair of Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing. Thanks everybody for joining this evening. And I will pass it on. Next person I see, Caitlin.
Hi, I am Caitlin Davidson. I am on the PNR committee, and I will pass it to Vanessa.
Are you there, Vanessa? Oh, there you
go. Oh, you had it for a second. There you go.
Sorry, I had the wheel of death. Hello, I am Vanessa Perry, she, her pronouns, PCCEP member on the Community Engagement Committee. I'll pass it to Jorge.
Hi, everyone. Jorge Sanchez Bautista, Policy and Reform Subcommittee member. I'll pass it over to Conrad.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Conrad Hewlin, he, him pronouns, and I'm also on the Policy and Reform Subcommittee on this wonderful group. Pass it over to Leslie.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Leslie Martinez. I'm the co-chair of the Community Engagement Subcommittee. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll pass it on to Tia.
Hello, my name is Tia Palafox, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the co-chair with Leslie on the Community Engagement Subcommittee. And I will pass it on to, I'm so sorry, I can still only see 6 people.
I see Gabby with us.
Okay, Gabby.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry that I keep not joining with my video yet. I'll be joining in 10 minutes with my video. My name's Gabby. I'm the chair of the policy committee. Happy to be here.
Lovely. And last I see Fosika.
Hi, my name is Fasika. I am on the Community Engagement Subcommittee, and I use she, her pronouns.
Right. Any other PCEP members we missed? That's everybody I see. All right. Now we can go ahead and jump into any city introductions, including PCEP staff and TPB folks, if you're here. And we can hear from the monitor as well. So I'll start and just jump in. My name is Dory Grabinski. I'm the PCEP program manager, and I'll pass it to Iman.
Hi, folks. My name is Iman Gassemi. I'm the community engagement coordinator. Happy to be here.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Dave Jackson. I work for the Portland Police Bureau. I'm a captain at the training division.
Yeah, and I'm Alicia Russell. I'm a lieutenant with the Portland Police Bureau, and I work in the chief's office.
And might just be down to monitor folks if you're here.
Greetings all. Greetings Codified PCEP. This is Antoinette, Associate Monitor, and it is just good to be with you tonight.
Good to see you. Oh, go ahead, Che, if you're with us. All right. Okay, and any community members, we'd love to hear from you in the chat if you feel like introducing yourselves. Alrighty, next I think we have community agreements. If you could pull those back up, Iman. I don't know how Liz does it so seamlessly. It's really, it's an undervalued talent, to be honest.
Exactly.
Kip, would you like to read these for us?
Sure, I'd be happy to read the community agreements. Listen actively and respectfully. Share airtime. Be present and open to new information and perspectives. Assume positive intent. Respect each other. Respect the group. Speak your own truth. Communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully. Ask questions to clarify. Call out bias. And my favorite, be okay with ambiguity.
Great. And next slide, please. All right. I could just run us through this. So we have a lot of updates for this meeting. PCEP is going to try to keep full committee to be sort of, an inventory of what's going on, assigning work, decision making, that kind of thing. So this particular meeting is a lot of kind of setting work in motion and checking in on things that are going on. So we have some work planning discussions. We'll check in on the PCEP plan revisions and then end with open public comment. All right, so let's jump into updates here. And you could skip ahead to you could skip ahead like 3 slides, I think. Okay, so back one. Oh, sorry. No, that you were on the right one. Okay. All right. Kip and Pastor Weisner, do you want to recap steering committee decisions for us?
Happily. I'll let Kip, if you like to start.
Sure. So we had our steering committee, first of what will now be quarterly meetings to look at our high-level topics and agenda items that we want to pursue over the following quarters. Excuse me. And the high-level topics that we focused on or bubbled up through all the different ideas that we had was for the full committee to focus on working towards the PCEP plan revision, which will deal with how PCEP operates in the future now that we're codified and existing beyond the settlement agreement. the upcoming status conference in Judge Simon's courtroom, and also I guess they're combined there, but post-settlement transition plans. We also have, and Christopher Taft couldn't join us this evening, but he apologized for not being able to make it. But we also need to discuss how we want our fall event with Mayor Wilson to look like, and what format and what topics we want to present and discuss. And also pursue the public safety system structure realignment and consolidation plans, and what that will be looking like, and how all of these things that we're working on should align with that, including I saw someone from CBPA here, more cross-organizational interaction and conversation also, so that we don't exist in as many silos as we have in the past. Does somebody want to speak to community engagement subcommittee priorities?
I can get it started. Let me look at my notes. The Community Engagement Subcommittee is going to be currently working on our community engagement plan as a team. That's going to include our goals and mission and responsibilities, as well as who our key stakeholders are, who the community-based organizations we're going to be working with. Iman is out in the community, working really hard to make contacts and engaging with folks in the community, building relationships, letting us know what events are happening so that we can get more involved in going out into the community. And it's just really taking off, and we have a great team, and we have a lot of work to do to engage the community a little bit harder and a little bit differently. Leslie and Iman, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can add a couple of things. So with that, part of our new structure, we want to have more meetings out in the community where our dedicated monthly meetings will actually take place in community with our stakeholders. So for that, as part of our steering committee, we identified we identified that we would have 2 events in the community. And then when we met as a group, as a subcommittee, we identified that, that was also in the steering committee. We identified that in Q2, in Q3, we would focus on youth and in District 1 with those events. So that is what we have been planning. And then we're also just refining our processes to make sure that we're engaging purposefully, and that way we can bring back reports and actionable items to the entire community to make sure that we are addressing community needs with our work.
Perfect.
Thanks, Leslie. And Gabby, do you want to continue the tradition we've established here, and maybe just share a little bit about policy and reform priorities for the quarter?
Yeah, so for the quarter, we talked about, I want to say in our next committee meeting on June 24th, we are going to have a presentation from the team lead from from PPB policy directives team. And they're just going to give us a rundown about sort of how things are working. It's going to be really informative. I'm really excited to hear from, her name's Ashley. But we sort of landed on this quarter, we're going to be focusing on police directives, which is an ongoing thing, equity hiring, and looking at the police stops data report, which has just come out. Also, definitely the policy, what came out of it is working with other organizations too, and unsiloing PCCEP. And it was a real fun steering committee. meeting. That's saying something.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, this kind of, so in full committee, we're going to include like these standing updates from each subcommittee, which I have like later on in the slides, but I think we kind of just did that because that's exactly what, the steering committee lends itself very well to those recaps. So thank you, subcommittees, for sharing those recaps, and kind of those previews about what's next, for all of your work. Okay, moving on to the next update. Next slide, please. Okay, so just an update that the independent monitoring team did hold a town hall on June 26th. This was I want to say Q3, Q4 2025 report, so covering this date range here. All of the paragraphs but 5 that the monitoring team is responsible for were found to be in substantial compliance. Those remaining 5 were found to be in partial compliance. And on the next slide here, I just put together a little rundown. Sorry, the slide is sloppy. There are 3 sections here. The third one is kind of off to the side on the bottom because I wanted you to be able to see it all at once. But I just put this together so you could see which paragraphs are still in partial compliance, and then also which paragraphs were terminated, because I know a lot of people couldn't attend that town hall. So yeah, that's there for you to look at. And I guess I'll pause here if anybody has questions or comments about the event if you did attend. But yeah, or any questions. We do have a couple members from the monitoring team here.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So I remember, Kip, you had mentioned bringing the monitor for a more in-depth thing, and I was wondering if that has moved forward.
Yeah, well, we took an informal poll, and there had not seemed to be a ton of interest amongst PCCEP to do so. However, this is a great opportunity to ask our communities out there, or also through the community engagement group, if there is a desire to have more conversation around the last half of 2025 report out. So we didn't really have much response across PCCEP for this meeting, but it's always a possibility to bring them in, obviously, because they've been very generous with their time offering to do so.
Awesome, thank you. I just wanted to know the status of that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Any other questions, or if anyone wants the slide back, we can pull it up. All right.
Not hearing anything. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that just about does it for updates, unless the subcommittees had anything else they wanted to share that didn't come up in that first section.
Yes, I have one more thing from community engagement, and that's
Great.
that we are planning for our next community engagement meeting that is scheduled for June 17 to have a working draft of the community engagement plan. So we're all providing input on that, and so we'll, that'll be kind of like a working meeting. And then once we have that meeting, we all kind of come to consensus on the plan as a committee. Then the plan is to present it to the full committee for review. And so this is just kind of like a friendly reminder for all of the subcommittee folks to please put in your comments by June 5th, this Friday, so that we can have enough to work from and make sure that we have all everything, like everybody's input accounted for.
Great. All right, thank you, Leslie. Gabby, anything else from you in this subcommittee update section?
No, thank you.
All right. Okay, I think that takes care of updates, so we can move into the next section here. All right, so we have a couple of work planning check-ins. I think there are two, and so here is the first one. So I'll back to you, Kip and Pastor Weisner.
I'm going to let Kip continue facilitating this part.
Is the game that good? Or,
Hey, you shouldn't expose me like that. I'm trying.
If you're wrong for that.
Caught him.
can't resist. You get be handed a straight line like that.
I'm busted. I'm busted.
I don't know.
Kip, you dunked on him.
No, it's all right. I'm sure it'll come back around.
All right.
Yeah. So it's curious starting the full committee, being the first full meeting of PCCEP after the elections without the community engagement and policy and reform already gathering some input. So it's going to be a little bit of a blue sky exercise as far as the topics that we're going to talk about tonight, but really looking for thoughts and input on where we should be focusing and how we should move forward based on previous experiences and our steering committee focuses and how to structure things going forward. So our first topic for tonight is going to be the fall event with Mayor Wilson, which will be public. Last year, the event was held at Grant High School. It was a multi-part event where Mayor Wilson came and talked for a bit and took some questions. And then we had a panel of city folks across electeds and public safety officials to do kind of like a panel discussion. And we got a lot of input from many different places through that meeting. And I thought that it went really well for how broad the approach was. So let's start with talking about that event, thoughts on pros and cons, what should we replicate, what should we do differently. I'd like to hear from the committee, and of course, we'll take time and hear from the public as well.
I want to commend the former chairs on a great town hall that they did last year.
Yeah.
We did get a call from Christopher, who sent his sincere apology and not being able to make it tonight. But Will, from the message and after having conversations with him, he reiterated that whatever developed plan that we come or create, he would be gladly, and I think he left the message with Kip and Dory as well, to help be the instrument of making sure that it moves along well. What I would like to, as I've said to him, say to our committee, in the areas of what, and maybe this may be a place of discussion, what if this is where we at, Kip, is how that meeting and topic of that meeting, with the new structure of the public safety, and that's the public safety division, which is huge, everyone knows. The mayor has always, we've had that relationship in the form of government of the settlement to have these meetings with him. But also now where that we have now the administrator, as we look at the structure of the chart of how that the city operates, the administrator, the mayor's chief public safety and others, and then the administrators remaining, but now the administrator plays a dual role in this. So I was hoping to get more clarity of how that operation line, though it's dual, will work under the concept of the public safety itself. And I think that would be a clear message for many who is probably have that same question of going further with how the public safety is going to frame itself and going forward with an interim, because right now the interim will be the city administrator. Going back to the original thought as well, Christopher said that there will be a town hall. He's going to send out some information, I guess, which just similar to what the mayor did in the state of the city. The city administrator will be doing the exact same thing with that group, city up. I can't remember the name of the organization, but he will be doing that public speaking there, and he will be taking forms and questions on in that public setting or in that event. It would be interesting if PCCEP would be able to be a part of the questioning in that area of the city town hall or city fair, that we can frame some of these questions to the city administration in the dual role that he's going to be playing, and hopefully have a better understanding of that. That's where I thought I would add to this conversation, Kip.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. Thanks, Pastor Weisner. Conrad.
No, thank you all for already getting the jump on this. My call out is, if we want people to show up and you want them to show up, there's already a bunch of media coverage and there's already a bunch of, I won't make any statements, but there's clearly a referendum going on right now regarding response times, both for police and fire. I think if you want to engage a lot of people and draw interest and get some media traction, having something not just about response times, but just how does the system flow, and being able to hear from city officials and electeds about all this extra attention on response times is going to draw a crowd. I mean, if we want to fill a gymnasium, an auditorium, that I think is the approach with everything going on and what's already in the news and what will be in the news. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. And what we've discussed previously in policy and reform, when I was co-chairing with Tia, and other conversations that I've had over the last several months, with different folks from PPB and from other city leadership, is as the public safety bureaus realign and restructure and find grounding, that the ideal thing, in my very humble opinion, is that things become approached from a values-based system. In other words, what does Portland need, and how do we address all of the needs, rather than looking at it from a bureau by bureau by bureau type approach. Because when we start compartmentalizing, it starts getting into a tug of war, which is something we've seen the last 3 years that I've been on PCCEP, and then years prior over budgeting. And really curious, something that I'd love to start that conversation with, and maybe in one of these town halls that might be up and coming before we have our event, start understanding that how is the city taking a holistic approach to public safety, and how could that possibly play out in a way that makes first responders and problem solving and violence prevention all front and center, rather than everybody jockeying for one position or another. And that's one of the loftier ideas that I presented in the steering committee. And I am curious about what everybody here thinks about a discussion around that approach to public safety.
I would just add to that piece of it that I think there's a lot of that's a very frequent discussion within the PSSA, we call it, Public Safety Service Area. I think there's a lot of work and strategic planning done around that exact conversation. So a good starting point for that might be inviting some of that discussion in an upcoming full committee meeting. But I think I'm hearing a lot of consensus about this idea. I think Conrad is calling out a great sort of way to frame this and sort of a hot topic right now. Pastor Weisner has mentioned, the role of the city administrator, and that makes a lot of sense. Any other PCEP members have sort of any comments about the idea or the concept as we're developing it? Because like Conrad said, I think, and as we all know, we want to get this on the books as soon as possible so we can make it happen and get the right people there. So any other PCEP members have comments about that piece of it?
Was Robin suggesting having the public safety subcommittee be more front and center than just of the city council rather than just city council members? I felt like that's what I heard.
Could you ask me another way? I got cut off on time.
I heard you talking about public safety and then our leaders, but what I thought I heard was having the public safety subcommittee out of the city council be more of the presenters, or being the ones that we invite to, instead of just the city council members, but the public safety subcommittee council members.
Well, that would be a great suggestion for us, different from what I was discussing, Tia. I was looking at the way that the alignment now that the city public safety division, the whole division, is going to be run now. And
I love that.
That way it's being run is still not clear. And probably how the questions that we should be able to know what's the city's objective of public safety and then what is going forward in this leadership structure now. Again, what plays it differently in my mind, again, is where that under the old regime, way we ran it, the mayor and the city settlement agreement, all those things that we did was directed toward the mayor, and public safety was what under the mayor's structure at that time, I believe, too, as well. It kind of lined up in that public safety bureau and people there. Now the structure is different because it's broken into two different organization structures. Is that right, Dory? Am I following? Is about right? The mayor deals with the chief. The mayor also deals, and now the public safety deals with the chief, but the city administrator deals with differently, and the chief now, because he's the interim public safety team, part of his portfolio.
Okay, that's
yeah. I would say you've got all the pieces right. How it comes together, I think, is a little more, and that's part of what we're talking about. Exactly. Is maybe having yeah.
Exactly, because again, I think following the structure where we are in this and aligning it again with where we are with the settlement and where we are codified and where we are under the public safety, where we are as a group. Our unknown is how I think that it's going to operate in areas of, in my mind, again, the new interim. They're going to hire or they're not going to hire another person. I'm not sure of that, if they are or not. But it'll be interesting to have that question posed to the new administrator of what his views and how all of this works in public safety.
That's what because I wanted to say, I would like to see the public safety subcommittee being involved. But then before I said that, I thought that's what Robin was saying. So I was waiting to hear the rest of what he was saying, because that's what I was hoping to have them available and maybe give their updates But I also was thinking about all the different police, what advisory councils and committees, and how could we work together with them? And could they be involved somehow, like FitCog, TAC? There's like 6 of them. Like, could we invite them and work together with them, or like hear like an update from? It might be too much, but to do an update on what all the advisory councils are doing, because I feel like we might be overlapping in some of our advisory councils.
You know, it is huge because again, some of the things that I think of when you look at those different advisories is also the new accountability team.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
I would say,
go ahead, Dory.
yeah, I just want to keep us a little tighter on this.
That's fine.
I would say that those ideas maybe make me think about, so it sounds like there's broadly consensus about this concept. Obviously, a lot of details to work out, and that's what we would do over the next few months. But this discussion is making me think about structure. So if like we do like a more typical town hall format or something like that, we can't have, 10 different kinds of speakers, right? That would
Yeah.
be really, really difficult. But
Yeah.
if we approach the structure differently, and I don't think one is better than the other, but if we did more of like a, I don't know, community event that is like, I'm completely spitballing, but like some sort of fair, or like, I don't know, like tabling thing, or like whatever, like a resource thing where it's like, here, you can come learn about all these different parts of like public safety and how they're working. The outcome would be very different, but that would also be like an option. I'm just saying, the point being, there are different ways you could think about structuring the event. However, probably something you want to prioritize is making sure that there's engagement with the mayor himself. So that's my piece about that. So I guess if there are any thoughts about structure, transitioning us into that.
I just have one more thing to say. I can't write in the chat because of my Zoom isn't working like normal today, but so that's why I'm raising my hand and talking more. But I just remember being a greeter at the last event. I feel like there needs to be a little better signage. There was quite a few people who maybe glanced at the table, but just walked down into their chairs. I don't think they fully knew what was happening. So if we could have like maybe a better sign that says, please check in, and like point to us to get maybe a little more instruction and to know what to do, and to definitely stop at our table before they have a seat. So just a quick little maybe helpful thing for this next round.
Sure. Gabby?
Yeah, I just guess I was wondering how like other members felt about like doing like having a radically different setup, or if we're like considering these events like PCEP live, like we're just doing the same thing. And I mean, having like in-person conversations like with the mayor, which I think is great. But is there like a desire from PCEP to like see new things and try new things?
I think there's something we said about doing like a public safety party kind of a thing, right? Or like almost like it's a vendor fair, but instead it's all the different pieces coming together. And then there's a booth for each group, and each group gets kind of explain what they do. And then maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, like another workflow chart presentation that kind of explains how all those pieces work together and kind of form that stream of function. I mean, I'm always down to try something different if there's a general consensus that some key pieces of information that people need to make informed decisions and understand how their city works needs to be better communicated.
Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah. Kip?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm totally open to hosting more informative type meetings. Information is generally a good thing, but I do want to keep a focus on this is a event to engage with Mayor Wilson and city staff that he brings along unless we invite additional people. So I do feel like it's a unique opportunity to have meaningful conversations with city leadership that we generally don't have the ability to do, and it's kind of a privilege to be able to host it. So I'm very much wanting to stay focused on the conversation with Mayor Wilson and what topics we might want to have Iman and community engagement and of course policy and reform go out and find out from community what they would like to have discussions about and build it around that kind of a framework. I really do like the event that Conrad and Jorge had put together last year. I thought while the bifurcation of Mayor Wilson then the panel was a little challenging, I think it worked very well overall. And I want to kind of stick with that kind of focus area of we generally don't get an hour of the mayor's time to have intense conversations, and I think that's a privilege that we shouldn't squander either.
Gabby.
Yeah, I thought the event was really good. I guess I also just want to put out a reminder that like there was such great conversation afterward, and that if we could like expand that, and maybe that could be done by like a bunch of people, kind of going around and talking to different people. Like that's what happened. People broke into groups, and then there was really great conversation that was very real.
Totally agree. Yeah.
That's such a good point. I put in the chat, but just kind of bringing together what you guys are saying. Like you could, I mean, the world is your oyster. Like we could do both. You could have a dedicated time where you hear from Mayor Wilson and have like dedicated questions. But like it could also, the format just could be different and lead to that, a lot of ways to think about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to come down to what topics we want to discuss and how much time we can allot to them. So
I have a question for our former chairs, and Dory possibly. What was the work product that came out of the last one? And was there follow-up that did not or did get followed through? Because if we remember, there was a lot that was going on during that time, ICE and other things that was happening. The Portland police not being able to respond clearly to the community. There was a lot that we felt that they really dropped the ball on, if I use that word, because the mayor left early, community, there was a lot there. But I think, made recommendations out of that, right? And going back out of that, the response was somewhat, I don't remember what it was, but was it satisfying to follow up and do a pre-concept of 2.0 of what that looks like, and then from 2.0 talk about that, and then other things I'm looking at. I'd just like to see what there was, and from the three, maybe I missed it. Dory, Conrad, or Jorge.
Just to kick off, I mean, I think it's a good call out. From my understanding, by rule, we technically only get an hour with the mayor, which is more than, right? I mean, most other groups can do. We did give him a lot of bandwidth to speak and not answer questions, and probably at least my recommendation, I'll let Jorge chime in as well, is that basically the mayor doesn't really get remarks, and it should be more just questions to the mayor. And that would be a better follow-up. He gets a little 2-minute recap of his highlights, but if we only get him for the hour, then he's answering questions. We can give him a heads up on what some of the questions are so his team can prepare, but that would be a better use of time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Caitlin? You're muted.
If Jorge wants to go first, he totally can, and then I'll respond because Conrad had made me.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jorge.
Yeah, no, Pastor Weiser, I think you're, to Conrad's point, like, yes to that. And I do remember, we did have a sort of like conversation about the questions that attendees had, and I remember Liz had sort of drafted it all into a document to sort of send out. That was sort of like our follow-up about all these like various issues and topics that folks wanted to touch on, but I don't believe we ever did get an update on it. And it was like it was like 3 or 4 pages. It was like a bunch of questions about several issues. Yeah, but I think to Conrad's point, like about that 1 hour, it is like it's hard because I think for me, I definitely wanted a little bit more engagement in some way because obviously it's like, the mayor showed up, he gave his little address, and then he answered like I can't remember exactly, but it was like what, like 5-10 questions around there, based on what everyone else, the themes, we kind of just chose the themes. I think I would have preferred something a little bit more like really one-on-one, but it's kind of hard to picture and envision how that would look like.
My final thought before Gabby, I do recall speaking to the both and saying that maybe I played ball a little harder, and there was some tug and pushing just for what you wanted to get there in the event. But I think from the learning of that, I believe hopefully from what community, as I remember, felt that it was more of a how that happened, and see you later, Charlie conversation. I showed up and I wanted to talk about all the good. We didn't talk about Lamar, John. There was a lot going on in that particular meeting there.
Yeah.
And I felt again, not knowing, was it actually the bullseye that we got out of it? And if not, then let's strike it back put the bullseye back out there again, I think, and strike it this time a little differently, because the experience from the first one, like you said, was different and harder probably for what we learned. But I believe there's an opportunity that, again, the engagement will be a little bit more experienced and seasoned to be able to say, this is what we really need from this event or that event. And I'm gonna pause there and let Gabby speak if I said enough.
Well, I'll let Caitlin speak and then I want to say something.
So I have a couple of things here. I'm also looking at. Okay, I'm just going to ask the things that came up. The first one I have is, what if we change the format to where the Q&A occurs first and then the mayor gets to speak? Because at that point we can arrange and make sure that there's going to be an actual kind of legit amount of time for the Q&A to occur. And then, if the mayor goes over, then the mayor goes over, but at least we got kind of the juice we wanted from the squeeze, right? The other piece is, like, did we get contact information from people that were asking that we got the information, the questions, and that kind of stuff from, so that there was a way to reach out to them? I know that we had kind of had conversations about if there was a way to do that, but I don't remember an answer to it. And then the other thing is, where's the rule about the mayor attending? That's what I got.
I can answer some of those. Sorry, I can't remember the first part. What was the first part?
Sorry, the first one was changing the format so that Q&A happens before the speech.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, great. So as far as collecting contact info, like, that's something we always try to do with attendance at all of our events. But over the years, it's been important to members and community stakeholders that we have the option to be anonymous. So we never like force anybody to give us their contact info, but we do have a channel to collect it. And I don't know about you, but when I walk into an event, I often don't do that myself. So it's hard. And then the requirements for the mayor to attend PCEP meetings are that he has to attend 2 public meetings per year. There is no mention of time, which is why this last time that was the conversation. It was like, well, he attended it and attended for the amount he was able to. But there's no, I think if you were to make you are well within your rights to make an explicit request about time.
But I mean, like, where's that baked in? Is it in the PCEP stuff?
Oh, yes, it's in the PCEP plan.
Okay. So I guess my question is, he could just show up for 5 minutes and call it a day, even though he's not attending in earnest.
That would be PCEP. The PCEP plan historically has been like a part of sort of the compliance assessments
Good.
for the settlement agreement, which is we're kind of in a new territory since we're no longer part of the settlement. I think that would be one of those things that would have been sort of scrutinized by whatever the monitoring agency was. And they might be like, well, that's not the spirit of what this says. You often hear things like the spirit of the thing. So like, I think that's where it's like that weird gray area where I think that would have been a harder sell if it was 5 minutes, but yeah, I mean, you're making a good point. So I think being explicit about the request in the future is probably a good call. Gabby?
Yeah. I was thinking this last time, and Pastor Wisner sort of touched on this as well. I think it would be really neat if PCEP decided that there was a person that was going to have the one-on-one conversation. Actually, Jorge kind of said this too. Like, we come up with questions, a person has the one-on-one conversation, and like you make sure to answer the hard questions. Like, I think that I liked the event a lot. We got a lot of like just kind of talking points, like something you would just put out there in like a general statement. And like if we just have somebody who's like, if you get that general statement, just push back. And I think that would be really great. And I want to say, I don't know what more I want to say about that, but I think like if we just agree that this person's going to represent us, we pick out the questions, and then they just don't let them avoid questions, or you know what I'm saying.
Filibust.
Yeah, filibusters.
Yeah, no, I like that approach a lot. A moderated conversation kind of, where the questions are gathered ahead of time. Then you have person asking and having a conversation about it, not just question, answer, question, answer, question, answer.
Sorry, one more thing. And if we get 2, does that mean, and we're talking about fall, then we're one behind, right?
Well, kind of, yeah.
Let's make him come to the next meeting.
So he owes us one. Okay, Christopher,
Well,
where are you?
That's the thing, is that like it can just be like him coming to one of these, like that would count. But we don't usually make that request,
Well, what if we had that like once a year he comes to one of our meetings online?
Yeah.
And once a year we do an in-person thing, at least for the next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's
we did
totally
what Wheeler.
legitimate.
Wheeler did. Mayor Wheeler did it like that when we got back. But I think, and I'm agreeing with either or, but I thought it was really a great form the way PCEP did it last time with the mayor present. And maybe that was because we were just getting back into the alignment with the agreement with Mayor Wilson. And there was a working build back up to trust to come out to see if he wanted to continue to engage, and which he did engage in the meetings. Where this one is a little bit more, I thought was comfortable for the community. And I liked it, what I saw there. And don't mean to take up much time, but I did know that other community leaders like Antoinette was there, and didn't know how she engaged, or Dr. Allen or Barb, what they engaged in that conversation and what they felt in it. I thought everybody else felt it was pretty good, but I heard a lot of other pros too about what happened in that meeting. Or cons, not pros.
Gabby.
Actually, never mind. Sorry.
Caitlin.
So kind of following up on what's happening in the chat over here, I do think it would be like a good idea, because I feel like what fell apart for us when it came time for the follow-up was trying to coordinate who was going to try and respond to what and what we wanted to do with that information. So if we set aside and had like a meeting with that like event space that we've done before, right? Like if we went into that kind of a space and had a dedicated time and space set aside for us to find like, kind of look at the questions and figure out what kind of responses we wanted to make and actually just like respond to some of those specifically, people would have those one-on-one responses that would be really rewarding for them and let them know that we are listening and we're responding and we plan for follow-up and we're reliable like that. And then the other piece of us posting some of those like public responses as well to like the general consensus concerns that we find and putting those on the socials. Then it also puts out to not just people that actually came to the event, but other people that were there, were listening, were following through, right? Which is the biggest piece I think that people have frustration with when it comes to like city run things and government is the follow through, the lack of follow through. You feel like you're yelling into a void. So just, I think that would be a good way to solve that follow through issue that we had last time.
Yeah. How do other people feel about that idea?
100%.
Yeah, we need that.
Yeah.
Can you say it one more time?
So I think in the chat, you could see, or you go ahead and you can reiterate, Caitlin.
Just that we have, so after we have the event, right, because our follow through kind of fell apart last time. So after the event, if we set a meeting time for all of us to come together, we don't have to try and coordinate through email. We don't have to try and find time for ourselves to go through it all. It's a dedicated time that we have set aside, that we come together and have a consensus on what we're going to respond to things with. Because if we're all independently kind of responding to things, people are going to get different answers.
Yeah.
And then posting on social, it gives us two different avenues of follow through and outreach.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Didn't you do that, Dory, on the website in response to that?
What Caitlin is suggesting is, because we have 2 designated meetings with the mayor, and we're kind of on a tight timeline already this year. What my understanding is that Caitlin is suggesting pre-planning, like in tandem with planning this bigger event, planning a follow-up conversation with the mayor. That's a little more casual, but will be in person or whatever, also hybrid, like engaging directly with the mayor about like questions that didn't get answered in the first one.
Excellent. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do all the online record keeping, of course, as usual, but this is like a little bit more of an intentional follow-up. Gabby?
Yeah, why don't we have that be like the next online meeting? I think that would be great. Or not, I'm not saying like the next meeting that we have, but if we were to have him come to one of these meetings, like we could have it like that, because we already have a bunch of questions that we can follow up on. So that doesn't even need to think about like, after this event, like that could be the next thing that we do. But I was going to say, and maybe this is a stupid idea, but I think like the public access studio is like so great, and they're already coming to they put it up on their site, but if we actually did it in studio, it would fit probably the same amount of people that came to the last one. Just a thought, and I think it would feel kind of fun, and it would be like a TV interview. Just a thought.
Open signal, yeah, that's a cool idea.
And it's just fun to be in there, and I think, I don't know, just
yeah. Okay. Well, I think this is going to require more conversations. But I think there are a ton of very, very good ideas. Some general consensus about like the sort of overall framing of the event. And then also some consensus-ish about maybe having a little bit more of an interactive structure, but also definitely making sure there is dedicated time to engage with the mayor and hear from him. So I think those are a lot of really good workable pieces. As far as time frame for this event, responding to the chat. So obviously we're gonna work with his scheduling team and Christopher. Like, I think it would be really great on our side if we could do like September or October. But you know, that's very subject to his availability. Especially if we're gonna try to plan too. So I think our next steps will be to follow up with Christopher Taft, the mayor's liaison, and see what's workable on their side. And then how would you like to kind of check in on this planning process moving forward? Just these monthly full committee meetings, or you know, any other thoughts on that?
I think once you touch bases with the time frame of where he is, we can do that brief report in that meeting monthly. I would vote that we do September, not October.
Yeah, do you think you would have an answer, Dory? I'm sorry, do you think you would have an answer by our next meeting, and then we can talk, like, this is when it's happening, and then talk more concretely about what we are gonna do?
I think definitely
field full of cows.
I'm hearing some. Yeah, I think we could definitely get a date within the next month. Yeah, and then I think likely we would want to check in online is fine. Asynchronously is fine, but probably even before the next month to nail down a couple of more of the details, just because we're trying to give them more notice this time, so we can have more engagement. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you think that we can just, since I think we've gotten pretty far in this conversation, that we will, what have we agreed on, that we want it to have an interview style, right? And then we're gonna decide somebody, yeah, okay.
That the interview style piece of it, I'd like to talk with Christopher and then you all more. So we got some feedback about the last event from the mayor's office and the mayor, which is that they actually, and I agree with this, I think that we kind of overcorrected on our side in kind of prioritizing like how orderly the event was. And because what we did last time was we did filter the questions in advance and have you all ask them. And one request that they have made is that they would like more like direct engagement with the public. Meaning like people being able to ask questions, like any questions they want. So just sharing that with you all, that they did give us that feedback. Conrad?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair call out. I think what that needs though is a moderator.
Yeah.
You literally need sorry, I'm trying to think of some of the 60 Minutes reporters, but you literally need that person in the chair up there that said, you know, Mr. Mayor, what would you say in response to this rebuttal? And actually kind of press professionally and respectfully, but press for an answer. But then also, as we know, there are sometimes some community questions that are so niche. Yes, they deserve time, but you know, someone needs to shepherd it back to things that affect the standard deviation of the community.
Totally agree with that. I think, yeah, let's talk about this more later. Facilitation of these events, I think, is really challenging because a lot of times the professional facilitators that we use don't necessarily have the content expertise to be able to push on things. So it's hard to know who the right person is. And yeah. So I'm in complete agreement. Let's talk about that more. Jorge?
I was just gonna echo, based on the feedback that you got from the mayor's office. I think that was kind of my point about like the way we did it could have been done in a better way to really engage more with the public, because I think that's kind of where in some way I felt some frustration from members of the public after and before. So that's why I think
Yeah.
a good call out.
Agreed. Gabby?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think like every conversation that we have with the mayor is going to have a time for public Q&A. I think that we're all on the same page. Like that's like definitely a given. And I 100% think that we can agree on somebody from this committee to like push back on the mayor. And he's when he gets public answer questions, he will give generic answers and we're going to need to push back on that. And that's the whole importance of like having one person do the discuss, lead the conversation.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's something we can discuss with Christopher. So that's definitely something we'll bring up with him. Okay, I think I let this go long because a lot of good ideas were coming up and yeah. So anything else we want to say before we wrap this?
This is exactly the kind of conversation I was hoping we'd have tonight about this. So perfect.
Same. Yeah, really, really glad to hear all these ideas. So, I mean, yeah, as a next step, I will schedule time. Honestly, I would like to extend it, I think, to any PCEP members who are able to join a conversation with Christopher Taft about this. So I'll try to set that up. That'll be our first next step, as well as scheduling, and then we'll go from there. And we will update on this in our next full committee meeting.
Woohoo.
All right, great. Okay. I believe the next thing we have queued up. Is everyone ready to transition? Okay. So, Iman, if we could get the slides for the next item. All right. So we have two more things to discuss tonight. If we get to them, we are planning on ending at 8. So the first is this statement for the upcoming status conference on July 28th. Again, we have plenty of time, but trying to, be a little more ahead of the curve. And the last item we have on the agenda, which we may not get to, is talking about the PCEP plan revision. So let's stick with the first one for now. Yeah, so we've got about 2 months. Typically, this is sort of a group writing exercise asynchronously. And so I just wanted to give you some time to talk about your process and how you want to identify themes to include in that statement.
One is appreciating the history, where we came since we're codified to where we're going. I think that should be an initial part of it. And then I'm going to hold my other ideals listening to other folks.
Go ahead, Kip.
Yeah, no, I'd like to, and I think we talked a little bit about this in steering as well. I'd like to get some conversations going about the initial ideas of the PCEP plan. And I think we may not have a lot of time to address it tonight, but I think getting the conversation started about where that should go and what ideas committee members have for that is really important, because what I'd love to be able for us to do when we present in Judge Simon's courtroom is talk about, like Pastor Weisner just said, about where we started, where we've evolved, and now that we're officially severed from the settlement agreement, where we see ourselves going forward, and talking about that and the impact that we still intend to have on public safety and policing in Portland. And I think that would be a great focus to lean into. What that looks like for us is, I mean, I have my ideas, I'm sure everybody else does, but starting to coalesce those together so that we can maybe not have a final version of it by the time we present, but some main themes to talk about that we think are important for us as we move beyond the settlement agreement into this new evolved state of PCEP.
I see Leslie hand before I go.
Kind of along similar lines, I think one of the things we were talking a lot about in the steering committee is like, now that we're not now that we're technically not part of the settlement anymore because of because we're in compliance or whatnot, how do we continue the work and like ensure that there's support? Because I think there's a concern, like we've already kind of discussed a couple of things tonight, that we're being monitored by the independent monitor to ensure that like the spirit of the agreement was respected, or there's a better word for it, I'm sure, but like that the spirit of the agreement was respected and that PCEP had the support that it needed to continue doing its work. And so I think that's one of the things that now that we're not, I'm just trying to figure out like what that means for the future of PCEP. And I think that's important to mention. Hope I made sense.
It does, Leslie, because that's exactly where I was going to go in my thought. And again, recognizing the difficulties that PCEP was challenged with. And then the appreciation, if those who may not know, this was a unique model in the agreement when it came. So actually, Judge Simon took a big, huge risk in areas of what was accomplished. And then, as we know, the ups, the downs, the things, and a lot of things that people did not think that it was going to survive out of that. Even Judge Simon had to kind of pause and try to keep us on inflated, if you don't mind me using a metaphor, wheels up and running and pumped up where we would continue to go with community that was believing in the areas of where we were and how we could come together and be accountable and respected as well. And so outlining those achievements is huge with the appreciation, because I've followed as well as others on this here, and I think of those like Barb and other Cotwash, Dan Hannum and other who people, had a very strong hope of what we are today. And I think we are some in the areas of moving in that direction of what it began to be like from the ideal of what the courts was expecting, community engagement and hearing and making the city and the mayor being present and the chief being accountable to our recommendations and those things is what I think is highlighted to the respect of who we are right now from what we've heard even in the city council when we were there, and to get the support and those who supported it. And the mayor as well.
Kip and any other PCEP members who have thoughts on this or questions?
Yeah, if nobody else has a question real quick. The two themes that I've mentioned before that I'd like to include in the update is Dr. Christoph's parting notes from the COCL in his last update in Judge Simon's courtroom, who made the statement that he had no doubt that we would in the coming years get to the other side of the settlement agreement. But the point he really wanted to make is that getting beyond the settlement agreement was the very ground floor. And I really appreciated how he framed that there's still a lot more work to be done. And I'd like to be able to reiterate that using his words from that update hearing. The other point that I'd like to include, because I think this has come up when we've had the past couple independent monitor reports and our town hall on Damon Lamar Johnson and other events that have happened over the last couple of years, is that while the city's made great strides in updating policies having what is considered a gold standard in directive review and public input through us primarily, but other committees as well, that there's still a challenge that we have that when these policies are pushed to the extremes, we're not really seeing any different outcomes, meaning that people in crisis still wind up grievously injured or dead. And if you go back over the last 20, 30 years, it's averaged 4 to 5 people per year, and that hasn't really changed much. And that what that tells us, as Leslie pointed out, I think, in steering committee, was that if there's still no real difference in outcomes, and there's still no real change in the accountability model, that the policies that we have put in place just are still don't suffice, and that is still a lot of work that the city needs to do, and that should be a major part of our PCEP plan, I think. And that is one of the things that I'd like to bring in front of Judge Simon. He has stated before in court that if it's out of the scope of the settlement agreement, he can't compel the city to do anything, but he can strongly suggest that they adopt certain things. And I love how he kind of approaches that. And what I'd really like for us to walk away with this first version of us being codified beyond the settlement agreement is a comment from him saying that he strongly encourages the city to adopt our upcoming PCEP plan. Those are the main thoughts that I have.
You're spot on, Kip. That's very spot on, I think, in the recommendation of what we can frame, Dory.
Yes.
How important to say again the staffing that we came from when we had nothing. To be able to form a qualified, and as those who are knowing Dory as today Dory, okay, not the Dory of yesterday.
What was wrong with me yesterday?
You got to remember, we who've been around know the gray hairs that you have developed.
Oh, you mean
the
yes.
skeletons and
Yeah.
the bones, what it made staff.
Yeah, when I came on 4 years ago, which is crazy, 4 years, but yeah, we were in a very different spot. Yeah, that's very true.
But here, I think, again, in the highlight of what Kip had just announced, and what the former independent group has spoken saw clearly. But I'm just sentimental to the point of where that there has been so much to say in this codified. You heard Antoinette Edwards a minute ago announce the celebration or the excitement to this new who we are. And those of us who have been there understand the significance of what has been what we're achieving today. So I'm just wanting to make sure again that in areas of what the dream of appreciation, the work that, those who have really put a lot of effort, Tia, Leslie, and then, I have to say again, we have this youth part, Jorge. There was a lot of outreach and intentions to get this where it is here, and those who are reaching it. Many may say there was a different path, and it might have been pulling teeth out of the eye of the tiger, trying to get it there, different way of getting it. But you can say that the dream from what Judge Simon took the trust and length of time that he continued in the city, hearing and going back and working it through, is a highlight in that what Kip has said. moving forward, saying again, we got a lot more to do, because without us, it wouldn't be possible to see the relationships that continuously happen when people are yet still continually with change like ICE and other things that continues to need to be held, and community voices need to be uplifted.
Any other comments, questions from PCEP members about this upcoming status conference? What about from the public? I know that, oh, go ahead, Jorge.
I will not be there. I will be in Europe. So
Nice. Where are you going?
I give you all my good luck, and let me know if he makes another joke about me.
I was gonna say, if anybody ought to be delivering this, then now that I know you're not gonna be there, we would love to have you to be the speaker. Because you and Judge Simon match.
I think Judge Simon would love to see me again, but
This would be awesome if it was you. But hopefully you enjoy your trip.
Yep. Tell him I said hi.
Do we have any, so I know members of the public here, a lot of you attend these things and have thoughts about the status conference or the settlement agreement more generally. We have time for a little bit of public comment if any folks want to chime in about what you think PCEP should present in July. Feel free to raise your virtual hand if you'd like to share anything. Go ahead, TJ.
Okay. Also, pardon me, I'm in the PSU building and karaoke broke out, so I'll try to say this quick. For those who maybe don't have all the information off the top of their head, can we go over like what happened with the Judge Simon decision and why is it important?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for keeping us grounded. So the status conference hearings they're usually twice a year. They've been going on since the beginning of the settlement agreement, and they are basically a time for all of the parties in the settlement agreement, including the public, PCEP, the DOJ, the city, the PPB, the police union, the amici, everybody comes together, and it's basically a periodic like check-in on how the remedies under the settlement are progressing. So of course that involves the compliance reports from the independent monitor, so that like formal sort of checklist of how things are progressing, but also like a more holistic discussion and the judge weighing in on some of those things. And sometimes they're like bigger decisions that they make during these status conferences. So all the parties and all the players in this thing typically give a presentation. Historically, PCEP has talked about issues that are of concern to the public under the scope of the settlement that they think the judge should know about, that might impact any decisions that he's making that day, that kind of thing. So I hope that gives kind of a picture of what these things are, but they're a little bit different every time. All right. Yeah, feel free to ask any follow-up questions that you have. Barbara? Barbara?
Hi, Barbara Bushinsky, Portland Cop Watch. I really appreciate Kip saying that focusing on the outcomes and how things have not changed, and that being the point. So I appreciate that, and I really appreciate the direction you're coming for really getting questions answered by the mayor in a different way, because I was also frustrated by the what do you call it, town hall a little bit. So anyway, I'm glad you're working on that. It just seems like y'all are doing some good work. Thank you.
Copy target.
I just wanted to ask a question quick. This is Luke back again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I took a hiatus for a little bit there. You know, I've been following this process for the last decade and a half that it's been going on for, and at this point, I don't think there is an end in sight. It seems more like an ongoing monitoring process than trying to reach a settlement, you know, once and for all. So maybe that's a question to bring up in the July meeting: is what's the overall goal? You know, if there is one. It could just be an ongoing effort, but it might need to morph if it's just going to be some monitoring process, you know. Thanks.
Thanks, Luke.
Could we ask Luke a little more about that? And because I want to find out more about if we're just a monitoring group. Could you help me a little bit more so I can understand that, Luke?
Sure, Pastor Robin. This began as the Community Oversight and Advisory Board a long time ago. And after the morph, it became the PCCEP. So the initial incident that resulted in this DOJ and Portland Police Bureau settlement effort, well, it's lasted for a very long time. So at this point, I really don't have faith that there is an intention to reach a settlement once and for all. Because it's been a decade and a half now, so it is important to look at that issue and just see if a adjustment is needed to become more effective and accurate.
Thanks, and I appreciate your comment there. It helps me to think it through, knowing, like you said, being there from the areas of time that you watched through decades, and the time that where it does not look like an end to something that's hopefully. But I've watched, like you, it's hard with law, is what I've seen, language to ensure, because like you and me and others that's here can remember marching Kendra James down Martin Luther King and justice. And it just takes us back to us saying how much and long it's been long enough to make, and then in between that we have all these other killings and shootings. I use that word killings because there are some that we have a lot of questions about. But I do agree with you on the part of that it is a good question, but I think PCCEP has really shaped hopefully the answer to what it is, just where you've seen tonight from my experience working with this group here, that gives promise to that answer. Where are we going?
Like our great lady Barbara just spoke from Cop Watch, not much has changed in all this time, but the effort is important regardless.
And I agree with Barb. Guy just put in the comment, thank her, because the spirit of Dan is still thinking through when I hear her speak a lot.
Thank you. Caitlin?
Yeah, when a wall's built not to be moved, it takes great amounts of efforts to try and move it an inch, right? So yeah, I get that. Now that I have a little bit more context, I guess I kind of have a question, because I did have stop data information pulled up, and so my question is, would it, like with the stats conference, is there a conversation to be had where maybe we put something in there about like the stop data information, right? The disproportionate kind of who's getting pulled, who's getting stopped thing. Because if it's more geared towards like the settlement agreement, I feel like maybe that's applicable to this. I don't quite know, so I'm asking more than suggesting.
I think to respond to that, Caitlin, any statistics or data that show the substantial amount of work that's more needed is identified in what the courts and the settlement has. a very good focus to see, even though we're codified, we're still relevant. And what numbers and how it looked, I don't know what that was shaped like coming from your committee. Maybe that be something you can put together so that it be informed in the discussion of what we say. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just the run of show for the conference hearings, as Dory mentioned, all the different parties that have a role in this over the years have an opportunity to speak, and there's no necessarily a specific topic, like Oregon Justice Resource Center have presented a couple times on some trends that they found troubling, that they wanted to call attention to. PCEP has called attention to things that they found concerning as well. And it's why we want to have this discussion, is to frame it from a committee standpoint. What do we want to present on how things are going, and what do we think still needs work? It's really, we have a open book on what we can present, as long as it's something meaningful.
I think, Kip, you're right on target because, and maybe some of the other group can chime in too, because we're speaking on partial of what we are in PCEP in committee forms, but we still have the mental health behavior part of this, and dialoguing with other things that are have been framed in certain committee work in itself. But I think it's relevant to kind of highlight that again, those different kind of working efforts of different speaking, such as again, the data that Cop Watch deals with often. And I can't remember in a meeting that we had with the monitor, the significant part of making sure that this contract is looked and they have not fulfilled is significant. And so there are some things that, other than just those, that we want to make sure that we address how that there is a lack of that. So again, hopefully we can put something very significant in language that Judge Simon is interested in hearing.
Yeah, I just think when we've, existed for, like Luke's saying, a decade and a half, right? But then and I don't know what these numbers were a decade and a half ago, right? Or if we were even keeping track of them the way that we are now. But when you look at like the census and it says that, Portland's population is 6% Black, but then you've got 20% of your drivers stopped are Black. It's like, it's disproportionate, and it,
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is it stops data? I think is one of the quarterly priorities for policy and reform, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which of course is why I focused on it, because that was
no.
yeah.
And like, I think that's you're spot on, Caitlin. I think to be asking questions about this, and I would just say, like, generally speaking, yes, that would be an extremely relevant thing to present at the status conference, because it is a part of the settlement agreement. But even, I mean, regardless of whether or not it is, it's a substantial community concern. Debbie?
Since you're talking about the stops data report, one of the things that was in the independent monitor's report mentioned that there really hasn't been a public presentation of that report, and something that PCCEP could or should be doing. And I just want to put that out there, because I think it'd be really great if you guys put it on your calendar and made sure that once a year that gets presented to you and the public, so we all get to know what the report says. Thanks.
Yeah, we've generally done that through policy and reform. Once a year, have PPB come in and speak to the numbers and ask questions, and it's generally been a challenging conversation. So
I don't want to again miss the highlight about this contract with the independent monitors being spoken to the Judge Simon.
Pastor Weisner, I think, and I don't know if we have time tonight, but quite honestly, I think that that is probably something that most committee members are not as up to speed about. I think that that might be something you've talked about more in other contexts. And so maybe there's a way we could share that information or any concerns you have, or things you want to you want to air, because I think that would help. Yeah, just to get people on the same page, or up to speed.
I just assumed that everyone was familiar with the process of where that the review of the independent contract is up now for the city to look at. And I'm asking that as a question to the team so that I don't repeat it again. Is everyone up to speed that has not, and it's been slowful getting along with that process?
Jorge?
Yeah, no, Pastor Rosa, no, I echo that too, because I'm also questioning where we are on that topic, just because it has been a while since we were asked to provide our feedback, and we do have less than a month until the status conference. But to your question, I am somewhat up to speed on the process in the matter.
Well, if I can provide a little clarity here, around, I want to say a month and a half ago, the city attorney's office reached out to PCCEP asking if you had comments about the renewal of the contract. We set up we tried to communicate about it over email. I don't believe any feedback came in that way. And then we set up a time to discuss, like a office hours type time. I think it was a Wednesday evening. I'm so sorry, I cannot remember which ones of you were there, but I think we had maybe 1 or 2 members who attended, which is totally okay. But basically, like, we were not able to produce any comment in the period we were given. So that's like our side of it, is that we were asked if we wanted to provide any input, and we failed to do that. And they gave us like a 2 or 3 week window, and that passed.
So that leads us to the discussion, maybe for time's sake, because it's only 15, 16 minutes in that, speaking to it in the status hearing conference, Dory, maybe I'm not sure where we can get caught up to speed with it all, but the importance of it is that I think, again, PCCEP members, I don't know how to say I don't want, I have my feelings about, and I tried to separate it because I got too many hats in this. But it's definitely something that I think that this group should take a very strong stand to look at and trying to build something from it. That's my recommendation. Barb, Copwatch has a comment, don't they?
Let's go to Leslie.
I think around that, I think that totally makes sense. I think it's easy. I will say, like, there's 2 pieces to that. There's a challenge in trying to get a group of volunteers to do something very serious and like that requires a lot of effort in a short amount of time. And so when we're only given 3 weeks to respond to something like this, that's difficult. I don't think we can expect that by us saying like, hey, we need more time, that'll happen. But perhaps, Pastor Weisner, to your point, because we know this will happen again, and maybe the effort is to make it happen again so that we can be slow to respond and like don't respond. Just kidding, assume positive intent, right? I didn't say that. But I think like maybe because we do know that it'll happen again, it's important for us to have like a protocol or some form of like, when something like this happens again that we need to respond to in a short amount of time, how do we want to go about that? And maybe that's something that we can establish, because you're right, you know, both things can be true. We need to respond to things like these, but we also don't have enough time as a volunteer group.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. I just want to, yeah. Yeah. I don't know who's next. Yep.
Yeah, I'll defer because I think this is an important thing to stay focused on and tease out, but it is challenging given 2 weeks, 3 weeks to try to respond to something. But there are aspects with the PCEP plan that I think are part and parcel of this conversation, such as suggestions on post settlement agreement and what it looks like without an independent monitor being involved. So there's follow-on things that we could also talk about, but in the sake of time, I'm going to table that for the moment.
You're muted, babe.
Was that me muted or was
Caitlin,
that?
it's your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm like last in line on my screen, so I apologize. Why don't we get at least like kind of a framework of a game plan? Like, is there anything specific that anybody wants to highlight in our statement, in our feedback? So like, I want to do the stop data thing. Pastor Weisner wants to do like kind of where we came from, where we've gotten to, right? Does anybody else have anything else like specific that they want in that?
I just something I wanted to say, because, you know, if we're not seeing a lot of change in like use of force, particularly deadly use of force, like I don't know about use of force, but deadly use of force, it's like we tried to like see inside of the bargaining for the contracts. That is where you could see a lot of change and accountability. You know, I think Copwatch was talking, there's one particular officer who has all these like use of force problems and complaints against that person. Their contract is protecting them, I'm sure of it. I mean, that's how it goes. And you have some dialogue around how we were kept out of it. So that could be also something that was kept or brought into a court. I don't think that's ever been talked about. I do so, but anyway, if you want to see change, it's through contract, and we have some documentation around that.
Jorge?
Yeah, no, yeah, Kaylin, to your point, I think for me, I'm still kind of everywhere because there's a lot of pieces, but I think to Gabby's point, I do second her point about like just general use of force, maybe deadly, but just I think the general use of force topic. And to Pastor Weisner's point that he made about just like independent contract and everything, I would argue in some way, because we've had this sort of issue. And to what Leslie has stated, like we definitely do need a sort of process on how we're gonna need to do certain things like this, because we've had this issue in the past where the mayor's office or city administrator or whoever in the city ecosystem has asked us for feedback in something and we've always been late or we just don't do it. And I think in that way, it is in some way the responsibility of the staff and of our leadership to ensure that we get to that point to where we actually, they communicate to us, hey, we have to get this if we actually want to. Maybe at first, get like a sort of temperature check, like, do we want to say or do something about this and then move on? And then if we do, then, actually set up a time to actually get to that point. We've kind of haven't done that. And so I'm curious, onto the point that Leslie made about how do we want to move on? How do we want to move forward when we have questions and requests coming to us?
I see it, Jorge, very great point. I had a thought, but the basketball game caught my attention at the score. I'm so, and I lost it. So let me get back on that thought there.
Yeah,
I
I
do
think
know
we
that there's
should
a process.
we should definitely note and table that so that we can wrap up on the hearing stuff. But that's a really important thing, Jorge, is how do we ensure, because we've been thrown things over the wall many times and not enough time to respond to it. So
Yeah, and it's so tricky because a lot of this stuff is like things just moving extremely fast. And so sometimes there isn't a good like, well, you should have given us more notice, like, you know. So yeah, good thing to unpack. Leslie.
Oh no, somebody already said what I was gonna say.
Cool. Caitlin?
So I think discussing how we do it in the future is really important. I think that we're probably not going to figure that out for this time around. What about if for this time around, like, you know, Gabby, you've got the piece that you want to bring up. What if you write a paragraph on that, right? Pastor Weisner, you have a piece that you want to bring up. Why don't you write a paragraph on that? I have something I want to bring up. I'll write a paragraph on that. We can email those together. We'll draft something with those. You know what I mean? And then or all we're the ones that you know speak on those things, something like that. But I think if we want like an actual single statement, I think if we just draft a paragraph on the piece that you know any of us wants to make sure is kind of stated in there, and then we put those together and make a single draft from those paragraphs, that seems reasonable and doable.
yeah.
An achievable goal, because not one single person is having to write the whole thing. We just kind of take them and put them together.
And I go defer back over to Kip's point because I was confirming Kip in that statement there. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just working along the conjunction side, not kicking you off because I see the game. Okay.
Dory, do you want a deadline on that?
Well, so I was just going to add to that, and I did have something more I wanted to add to the overall conversation, but that is generally how we've done the PCCEP statement, is that we'll create a Word document in the SharePoint and we'll draft it together and help wordsmith it together. So that's exactly the process, and I appreciate that.
I think Caitlin, the process Caitlin is proposing is slightly different, which I like, which is that like people own different like topics and contribute that. In the past, we've had like a couple of people designated as like the primary authors, and then I kind of massage it all. So Caitlin's, I think, suggesting a slightly more collaborative approach.
Yeah, I think it's gone both ways, but I appreciate the more collaborative process. So
The only thing I would say to new members, that this typically does happen every status conference, is during the status conference, from the moment it starts up to 5 minutes before we go, new information typically has us change.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's been a lot of last minute editing.
So just something to keep in mind, that like during at the actual status conference, we may change some points or just remove some things. So that's probably another thing that we'd probably want to have a conversation on. If someone writes something and then I don't know where it has to get worded differently, or you know, just changed around. Yeah.
And he brings a great point, Dory. As you know, many statements that we've had in the past in our statement from the city positioned certain things that were said at a certain thing that was stated, and we went that way. And when we got there, we had to all of a sudden shift. So the moves of what he is speaking of to the new membership is that definitely information that we present to the court should not be watered down because we did not know the answer before we got there. Because I think Jorge was one who had delivered that information.
All right, so I'm gonna try and wrap this conversation up so we can end on time. Kip, did you have one last thing?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think some other topics to consider, like you mentioned before, outcomes is going to be important. Existence beyond the settlement agreement, envisioning that part of the PCEP plan is going to be important. But also, I was reminded, I forget who brought it up, but under use of force, one of the questions we had for the independent monitor that I still need to follow up on was that use of force cases have dropped by 40% because they declassified some of the force use as opposed to there actually being different experiences for the public involved. And I think that is something we should talk about in the hearing update as well.
All right, so I'm going to summarize what I've heard come up. So, history, appreciating codification, post settlement agreement, visioning, and like also how is this all going to stay together after this thing is gone, starting to make those plans, stops data, outcomes, use of force. Those are the main buckets that I heard come up. And so I think a good starting point for us will be to create a doc. We can just kind of drop in those things as an outline. And then I think like maybe by I would say even like by the first week of July, if we could get a draft. And then, or let's say, yeah, by the full committee meeting in July, which would be July 1st. And I won't be here. But you all will be. So that would be a good time for you to check in on that with the team. And does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, I like the idea of us having a few weeks to put together the core concepts that we want to present and get into a document for review before the next full committee meeting. I think that's great. And then we can do refinement over the next few weeks afterwards.
Cool. All right. Any last questions, comments on this process? Love it. All right, let's just move straight into open public comment for this meeting. So if you have any public comments, either related to this agenda and what's come up tonight or about anything else you think PCEP should know, please raise your virtual hand. Anything? Oh, I'm seeing a real hand, Dr. Allen. Go ahead.
Oh, you're on mute, Dr. Allen.
Try again. I have participated in quite a number of useful and important committees over the last several decades. And the difference between the ones that had a long effect and the ones that didn't was written records.
Absolutely. Yes. That is an excellent point. Thank you, Dr. Allen. Debbie?
Hi, Debbie Iona, League of Women Voters of Portland. So I just, I apologize, I've been sort of in and out of this meeting, but when you're talking about the future, what happens after the settlement agreement, I also was a former member of the Police Accountability Commission, and one thing I came across during that work was in Seattle, they have an inspector general, and I just want to read you a little passage of what their so they have, and that person is established to help ensure the fairness and integrity of the police system as a whole in its delivery of law enforcement services by providing civilian auditing of the management practices and policies of the Seattle Police Department and the Office of Police Accountability, which is the equivalent of our new oversight agency. And the important part here is oversee ongoing fidelity to organizational reforms implemented pursuant to the goals of the 2012 Federal Consent Decree in United States of America versus the City of Seattle. So I think that, you know, I know I certainly have been worrying me about what happens after the Judge Simon and the independent monitor are gone. I mean, and the independent monitor are gone. This appears to be a mechanism that could work for Portland into the future, so that we have somebody who keeps their eye on the ball. And just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, and hope you'll think about it in your future deliberations. Thank you.
Debbie,
Thanks
you
so
hit
much,
it spot
Debbie.
Thank you,
on.
Debbie.
You hit it spot on. Comparing for the city size of what came out of the settlement agreement for success, I think that's something that I would recommend strongly that we take a hard look at.
Could be a great note for your post-settlement agreement comments in the status conference statement.
Strong, great,
Something to
Yeah.
consider.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Seeing no more hands. Yes, thank you to our new chairs, given Pastor Weisner, and thank you to you all for a really productive meeting, some really good conversations. So I will pass it to you guys to quickly wrap us up, if we can get the, or you could just share the next meeting date, which is the, I'm going to be slower finding it than Iman will be. So, but go ahead and wrap us up, Pastor Weisner and Kip.
I'm only going to say it's the fourth quarter and New York is winning.
Yay, yes, I'm sorry, Dory.
Oh, hang on. Go
I
back,
love an
stay right
underdog.
there.
I love an underdog.
Yeah.
But the
Stay right
the
there.
game is not over with yet, because we still got about 4 minutes. It's a close game.
Good job doing double duty, Pastor.
Thank you. Thank you, Barb. Next meeting, upcoming date. It says Wednesday, June 17th, community engagement, 6 to 8 p.m. on Zoom. Is there more screen or that is it? I was just reading. So, Kip, you may have more information.
No, I do not, although we were short 30 minutes tonight and we did not get to PCEP plan conversation, but to Debbie's point, I think existing, I want to include, like I mentioned, some of those things in our statement in Judge Simon's courtroom as far as ideas existing beyond the settlement agreement. So we should keep workshopping those asynchronously because we were at time. And yeah, the issue that you're talking about, Caitlin, is a big deal. And I'm going to reach out to the IM and I'll include you with that.
Perfect.
Policy meeting Wednesday, June 24th, fourth Wednesday of the month.
Woohoo. Thank you.
What,
Yes.
June 24th, you said? Gabby, apologize for not being at the last one. I believe I am a member there. I think I signed up. Did I? Dory?
I believe you did.
Okay.
Yes.
Please forgive me and not being there.
All right, folks. Thank you for a great meeting.
Thank you.
We'll talk
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you all.
Conrad.
Bye, all.
And
Thank
I
you.
don't know
Kitty cat.
Conrad's cat's
Have
name.
a great night. Bye.
Wonderful,
Good
wonderful.
night.
Good night.